There are places that feel wrong before you ever understand why. Not abandoned in the usual sense, not haunted in any familiar way, just wrong. A stretch of land somewhere in rural New England sits forgotten under gray skies. Fields that once fed families now lie empty and cracked. Trees stand too still, as if listening. Even the wind seems reluctant to stay. The locals stopped going there years ago. They don't like to talk about it. They call it the blasted heath. One night, long before the land was declared unsafe, something fell from the sky. No warning, no sound at first. Then a flash, brighter than lightning, split the dark horizon, followed by a sound that did not belong to any known storm or impact. Witnesses described it as if the air itself had been torn apart and forced shut again. By morning, something strange lay amid in the soil. A stone, but not a stone like any other. It shifted when you looked at it too long, not physically, but in the mind. Like your thoughts could not agree on what it was supposed to be. Scientists quickly arrived, curious at first, confident. The confidence did not last. Every instrument failed to give consistent readings. Light behaved incorrectly around it. When samples were taken, they did not remain stable. They changed, or disappeared. No one ever agreed which. And then, quietly, the object stopped behaving like an object at all. At first, nothing seemed wrong. The soil became fertile in ways that almost felt miraculous. Crops grew larger than they should have, faster than they should have. For a brief time, it looked like a blessing. But the color was wrong. Everything that grew there carried a faint, unnatural sheen. Not rot, not disease. Something harder to describe, as if the world itself was being repainted in a hue no human eye was meant to process. Animals began to avoid certain parts of the land. Dogs refused to bark near the fields. Birds stopped landing. Even insects thinned out, as if the insect itself had learned to fear the soil. At night, faint light would rise from the ground. No source, no flame, no direction. Just a soft, shifting glow that moved like it was alive. The Gardner family lived closest to the impact site. They were the first to notice the changes. At first, it was small things. Water that tasted slightly metallic no matter how long it sat. Crops that looked perfect but felt wrong when touched. Silence that lingered too long after speaking. Then, the changes became harder to ignore. Fruit that pulsed faintly under moonlight. Milk turned gray within hours. Animals would stare at nothing for entire days, unmoving, unblinking, and always, beneath everything, the same sensation. That something was watching, not from above, not from around, from within the land itself. The well was the first place they stopped trusting. It ran beneath the property, feeding everything they drank, cooked, and used to survive. At night, the water began to shimmer, not reflect light, not glow. It shimmered as if something underneath the surface was moving, just out of sight, brushing against the boundary between water and whatever lay beneath it. Sometimes faint colors would rise from it, colors that had no name, colors that did not belong to anything human. The family began avoiding it, but it was too late. People do not break all at once. It begins quietly. Sleep becomes shallow, dreams become crowded. Thoughts feel slightly delayed, like something else is thinking alongside you. Then the body follows. Skin dulls, movement slows, words stops arriving in the right order. The Gardner family changed in ways that could not be explained as illness. They were still there. They were still walking. They were still speaking. But it felt something was wearing them down from the inside, as if their bodies were no longer entirely theirs. At night, voices could be heard inside the house that no one could trace back to any living person. Not loud, not aggressive, just present. As if the walls had started remembering how to speak. There was a night when everything stopped behaving like itself. The air grew still in a way that felt unnatural, like the world was holding its breath. Light gathered above the farm. Not lightning, not fire, something more structured, intentional. A presence spread across the fields, and for the first time, the color revealed itself. not as a thing that could be seen properly, but as something the mind struggled to interpret without fracturing. The land bent towards it, trees leaned, soil shifted, the well pulsed faintly in response, like it recognized what was returning, and then quickly as it arrived, it began to leave. Upward, beyond the sky, back into whatever place it came from. But not everything went with it. Something remained, buried deep beneath the ground, still present, still waiting. Years later, the land is marked as unsafe. No one builds there anymore. No one farms there anymore. It was scheduled to be flooded, sealed beneath water, erased from the surface of the earth. But those who pass nearby at night still say the same thing, that if you stand too close to the edge of the valley and listen very carefully, you can hear something moving far below the soil. Not digging, not breaking, just existing. And sometimes very faintly, a color that should not be there flickers at the edge of perception, just long enough to make you doubt whether you saw it at all. What makes the color out of space so disturbing is not simply the suffering, it's the indifference. The color does not arrive with hatred, it does not punish, it does not even acknowledge the people whose lives it destroys. It simply exists, and in existing, it changes everything around it. The idea sits at the center of cosmic horror, not the fear of death, not even the fear of pain. The fear that the universe is unimaginably vast and that humanity may not matter to it at all. We spend our lives believing the world is understandable, predictable, safe enough that if something goes wrong, there must be a reason behind it. But stories like this whisper something far older and colder. That there are forces beyond human understanding, moving silently through existence every second. Things we will never fully perceive. Truths our minds were never destined to hold. And maybe that uncertainty is what unsettles people most. Because the color becomes more than a creature or phenomenon. It becomes a reflection of everything in life we cannot control. Illness, decay, time, change. The slow realization that some things enter our lives quietly and alter them forever before we even understand what is happening. A family drinks from the same well every day, believing it to continue to sustain them, never realizing the danger was already deep beneath the surface. And in many ways, people do the same thing constantly. We ignore the strange feeling in the pit of our stomach. We convince ourselves the changes around us are temporary. We continue routines long after something inside us knows the world has already shifted. The horror of the story is not just cosmic. It is deeply human. It understands the fear of watching familiar things slowly become unfamiliar. Watching a home stop feeling like home. Watching loved ones become distant versions of themselves. Watching the world quietly lose its warmth while life continues as though nothing is wrong. And maybe that's why the ending lingers. Because the color never truly explains itself. There is no final revelation. There's no grand answer. The only unsettling thought that humanity caught a brief glimpse of something real, hiding beyond the edge of understanding, something ancient, something impossible. And then it moved on, as if we were never important enough to notice in the first place. And then after it leaves, the land never heals, and people do not either. If you enjoy what I do, and you really like this video, please leave a comment and suggest some other topics you'd like me to discuss. I'm very much open to any ideas that you have, and I would love to hear more feedback on what I can improve on. If you fell asleep listening to this, then have a good night.